Hello and welcome to episode number 47 of the RDO podcast, as always with Jason and Alex Von Kennel. How are you this morning, my brother?
I feel great. I had an amazing sleep last night.
Alex feels great. He's had an amazing sleep. He's also rubbing in the fact that I don't feel great because I've not had an amazing sleep because Nate Dogg's picked up another viral infection from daycare. So I was up a fair bit last night. So just to apologise in advance because my brain's not working, I've already spilled coffee this morning.
So as kids, Jason was never allowed to have drinks in the lounge room because he kept spilling it. Because he's got this weird thing, so he does two things that are weird that people don't know about. Most people, when they hold the cup with like a center point so it balances, so it always remains level. Jason's extremely ham-fisted, and he'll just basically grab the cup, and wherever his wrist action is where the cup is. So he used to spill stuff all the time, and he's just proven again. He just went and spilled all his coffee again. So I've actually lent him some coffee out of my coffee. I've given up some of my coffee for him, for his...
So speaking of ham-fist, it actually segues really, really well into what I just briefly wanted to address this morning. Because I think if you can remember back to episode number 44, which was the Push for Better episode, when Alex ran through some of his testing numbers for his weightlifting, we got into a debate about overhand or alternate grip on deadlifting, and you were alternate grip pulling yourself over the alternate grip, saying, I think the line was something along the lines of, you don't want to let your grip deny the rest of your muscles the weight that it deserves.
Yep.
Yeah, so then the most important headline that you guys wouldn't have seen, because the media hasn't shown it in the last week, is that I sent the boys a video in the group chat of me deadlifting 160 kilos with double overhand grip.
Okay. And that's good. That's really really good.
Yeah. So I was
thing's
told
still...
it wouldn't happen.
No,
and if you go back to the comments on episode 44, was told it wouldn't happen.
Obviously, you sleep deprived, because I said that once your grip becomes the limiting factor is when you change grip.
Yeah, so obviously my grip's not a limiting factor.
Yeah, so you could probably go even more.
Probably could. I've run out of weights at home. That's the problem.
So, okay, so do you want to take back what you just said? Because
no, I'm not taking it back.
Yeah, because...
Go back to episode 44. But for the record to show...
That's what I said. I said when it becomes a limiting factor. It obviously hasn't become a limiting factor, so you can still get double overhand. So that statement that I made was still correct.
I'll take that back, but I'll still just say for the record to show for the players at home, 160 kilo deadlift, 150 kilo deadlift. Cool. So I'm actually going to start my own training plan. It's called Same Genetics, Better Results. So if anyone wants to subscribe to my training plan, you just let me know.
Don't do anything for 3 months. Come and do a couple big lifts after my testing. So after it, weeks after.
After I was sick.
Yeah, and
So you're saying with no training, I can still lift more than you?
No, you lifted more.
6 chin-ups to 2 as well, by the way.
You lifted more.
Yeah.
100%. I'm not denying...
Just wanted the record to show that.
I'm not denying the facts, but I'm sticking to a program. That testing's over, so I'm not testing again. I'm not gonna keep going until they tell me to go again.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah, no, good on you. That's really good.
Thank you.
Really good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyway, take the floor out.
So I had an amazing sleep last night, but I was chemically aided.
Right.
So a friend of mine has been telling me for years about melatonin. And I have no problem sleeping, except for there's only 2 things that make me have a not so great sleep. And that is if I'm sore from the gym, I think when I'm moving around, because I'm a quite active sleeper, it wakes me up. And if I'm gaming, and I don't wind down after the game.
Your brain hasn't switched off.
Yeah. So I actually set up my simulator, which I'll come back to, last night. You can catch me on Twitch TV. We'll put the link.
What's your handle?
Albatos.
Yeah.
So, and these races are hectic, and I had like a bit of an arm pump because I've upped my training schedule as well. So my chest was like on fire because I'm sitting there like this. People can't see, with a steering wheel in a setup that's not ergonomically designed.
Double overhand grip on the steering wheel? Not alternate grip?
9 and 3. So when I had finished, I was like, it was 9 o'clock, that's my bedtime. And I'm like, I'm not going to sleep well. I'm jacked from this race. I won it. I'll tell you why I won it after. So I thought, I've tried one melatonin, and I think I can't remember when I bought, there was like 5 different strength levels, and I got like the lowest one.
Can you explain to the viewers and listeners what melatonin is?
No, I have no idea. It's a natural occurring thing in the body, I believe.
Yeah.
And it makes you sleep.
It's a supplement that helps you sleep.
So I thought I've had one, and my experience with having one, I feel like I'm in a different state of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like my eyes get heavy. But my brain doesn't stop. So, but my body's tired, but my brain's not.
Right.
It's a really weird sensation.
Is that how long have you been taking it for? Is that like every time you take it, or is that because you were particularly wired that night, and then you've taken it, and that's what you're basing it off?
It could be a mix of both, because I don't want to live off it, so I only take it when I think that I'm going to have trouble sleeping because of some of those other factors.
Yeah, right. So it might be a slightly skewed representation of what normal everyday melatonin intake might be like. Yeah, okay.
But I took 2 last night.
Right.
And boy.
Because that's what all the medical specialists say. I was very surprised when I took double.
I went to sleep like straight away, and then when I slept all the way through, and then I was like, where am I?
What year is it?
Yeah, it was great. So it is a natural thing. It's cheap to get too. Like I think 50 tablets or something was $9 or something. Okay. So if you do have some trouble sleeping, get on it. Now, going back to the sim. So I used to have, I still have an iRacing subscription. iRacing it's not a game, it's a simulator. And you race with people all around the world. It's very competitive, and you can't just go and bomb dive into someone, because you actually lose license points, and you can actually get to the point where you get kicked off the game. So you've got to race proper. But because I live in a unit, and it's not my unit, I don't necessarily have this space to have this cool games room. Plus, I just got this new fancy computer. I really want to leverage the power of that computer to play this game.
Right.
So I've got like it's called a play seat. It's full Alcantara. Cost me a fortune back in the day, but I reckon I can resell it for a profit. They're that cool. It's a fold-out Alcantara race chair, and then you sit there's a little deck that goes over your lap. And that's where you put the steering wheel. It's got a little fold-out thing for the feet where you put your pedals. But it's just not practical to have that set up. And like our place is very aesthetically pleasing. And having seen a simulator like sitting there, it doesn't look very good.
Right. So
that's barred. That's barred from the house. And fair enough. So I wanted to just have the steering wheel set up in front of the computer. But typical fashion, just like when I tried to set up my microphone for my streaming setup, the lip on the bottom of my desk is too thick, so nothing fits it.
Right, yeah, okay. Like no clip onto it.
Yeah, the clamps. The clamps don't stretch that far. So I brought one of these bad boys. These things that Liam always makes fun of, because I use them for everything. So I've got them as a tabletop here. I've got them for holding my TV up in the other room. The camera that's you're watching on right now is being propped up by one of these. I've got 1,000 of these things upstairs. Yeah. So I brought one home and clamped on that, sat it on the desk, and it's the same finish as my computer desk, and then just put the keyboard and a little bit of weight on it, and it was almost perfect. Right. Almost perfect. I just want to put a little rubber, like a grippy sort of rubber.
Oh, underneath it, so it doesn't slide around. Yeah.
And then I'm set. So that's great. That's great. Now, not the most ergonomical, because like the steering wheel is very close to my chest. Because I think I've got short arms, long legs.
Okay.
So, and having done chest both Monday and Tuesday, well, I did strongman on Tuesday, and then I did like a big chest session on Monday, and then having the steering wheel like this, and then haven't raced for so long, and like absolutely wide.
You're not in your strong zone when you're
definitely not. Definitely not. But what I also
like this part's the hardest part of bench press.
Yeah, that's right.
And
I'm living there. I'm living there for 25 laps. Yeah. So, but what was funny is that, because I played yesterday afternoon, and most Australians are at work, so I played with all these Americans, and these Americans are very vocal. They talk the whole time, and I was just trying to concentrate. But the lunatics, I didn't want to go and do. I did what's called Unranked, So unranked means that it doesn't actually, you don't lose or make license points in these two different divisions.
Right.
And it's just oval tracks on a truck.
So it's NASCAR.
Yeah, oval tracks on a truck, which is basically NASCAR.
Yeah.
And an oval track in an old Indy car.
Mm-hmm.
And you can alternate between the two. 2 races in a row. I only did like 5 races. 2 races in a row during the formation start. I did not even pass the start-finish line to start the race before someone had wiped all of us out.
Because if you ain't first, you're last.
Yeah. But it's just people getting on the power, like, because it's quite tense. Unlike a video game, like when on Forza, for example, if you did a rolling start, the computer would control you up until that first point. In iRacing, you do it yourself. And so people just like, as soon as they see the green, they just flatten it and just spin out.
Yeah.
But the last race, one that I won, I had a shocking qualifying session, right? Actually, an oval track in a truck, come around the last corner, completely sideways, lost half a second, and thought, oh no, I'm gonna be like at the back of the field. Mm-hmm. Well, I must have got a bad lobby because I ended on pole. So I was going to start on pole. I'm like, okay, this is going to be interesting. There's like 20 people in the race, right?
Right.
By the end of lap 1, 6 people were left. And you can see at the top of the screen, such and such has disconnected, such and such has disconnected, such and such has disconnected. Smoke everywhere, because only small Charlotte Motor Speedway, only this short oval.
So just, I'm assuming that this is correct, but when these people disconnect, their cars get removed from the track as well? Yep.
Yes.
Well, that's handy.
But on the start, even though I'm at the start, I went gingerly into turn 1 because I don't need to go flat out and risk everything or I'm at the start. The guy in second place thought he'd take the high side as fast as he possibly can and took past me, but I got a better run and he's starting to get loose. He hits the wall and I think, and I've got to give credit to this guy, I think he knew what was going to happen and somehow Alt F4 or exited the game because his car was spinning.
Okay.
It was a 25 lap race. The 6 people that were left, 4 of those people did not last the second lap. So it was me and this one other guy for 20 laps.
Yep.
And I won.
For 20 laps?
For 23 laps.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say that it would have been perfect if part of the story was he crashed out on lap 23 and then you said to limp it to the end.
No, well, I did touch the wall once because like your tyres degrade over time, and so you got to change your lines and things like that. And I did slow down. I was saying to him over the radio because you can intercom people. I'm like, I'll slow down for you. Let's race. Like, because I was sick of just doing lap after lap after lap. I wanted to race, and then I just got bored of that, so I tore away and got the victory.
Nice.
So
well played, Al. Well played. So what rank in the world are you in that?
It's not ranked. It's not ranked. But I want to get my confidence back before I start doing some of the ranked.
I think where it's tricky with something like that is clearly in the unranked games, you're just playing against the guys who are terrible, who don't mind dive bombing. So the actual dynamic of the racing is going to be completely different.
It is completely different.
So I would understand why you would want to try to get a proper feel for the car and obviously your simulator and stuff before you go back into things that affect your license points.
Yeah.
But yeah, the actual racing itself would be very different.
Yeah. Well, I've got a B grade license. So you start, it's like rookie, D, C, B, A. Professional, then professionals after that. So my road license is the most advanced it's ever been. So I've probably been playing the game on and off for 5 years.
Okay.
But I got a B class road license, and I reckon I'm going to lose it really, really quick because I've only done one B class race, and I kept looping it in qualifying because the car was so fast. The best way to get to progress your license points is to be safe.
Yeah. Don't
crash into people. Don't cut corners.
Just finish races.
Basically, finish races is probably what gets you from rookie to D and maybe C. But C to B, you've got to now start finishing in the top 3. You've got to start qualifying like in the top half and at least finishing in the top half. Not necessarily winning races. But I think the B class race, you need to be progressing. If you're not progressing, you lose points really fast. So it's a bit stressful. That's why I need a good night's sleep. So thanks, melatonin. Now, I also want to talk about something else. I was in the car yesterday with a friend of the show,
Mm-hmm.
and he told me a cool story that I thought would... I asked if we can share, and we can.
Mm-hmm.
Through the non-financial advice that he received through the RDO podcast, him and his wife bought a car.
Right, okay.
All in crypto.
Right.
So, he told me in the car last night that he dabbled in crypto before.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, I think I was ragging on XRP in the day, and that's what he'd had, because it made sense to him, and his rationale was right.
Yeah.
So he sold, made some money, but after he heard when not to buy, he bought.
Right.
Smart man. And wrote it up to the other point where he said not to buy, and then he sold, and had 20 grand.
Wow.
Bought a car.
Yeah.
So those are the things you can and can't learn from the RDO podcast. You get it all here.
Well, as we say pretty much weekly on this show, take everything with a grain of salt, do your own research, make your own decisions. But at least we're possibly bringing some topics to your attention that you may not even have thought about researching in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, the news doesn't talk about when and not to buy. They just tell you to be scared of it. Koshi's telling you to be scared of it.
Yeah, yeah. All that happens that I've seen on mainstream news is they just tell you about how much power Bitcoin consumes because there's the whole climate change angle on the news at the moment.
Yeah, which is bullshit, by the way. Just I don't know. Can't remember if we spoke about it here. A lot of people are comparing the amount of power used to mine one Bitcoin and calling that a transaction because these people don't know. Yeah. And what they always compare.
So just to confirm, you're talking about the Bitcoin power story is bullshit, not climate change is bullshit, or both?
No, the climate's changing for sure.
Yeah.
It does change. We've got evidence of that. But the power consumption thing. And also comparing a Bitcoin transaction to a Visa transaction isn't the full story. So when you say, Visa only uses 400% less power than what a Bitcoin transaction uses, okay, but does Visa hold your funds? No, it doesn't. When in that transaction, have you counted the power from the bank that holds the funds to the bank that's receiving the funds? Cashback notes... all that infrastructure, are you counting any of that stuff in? Or just what Visa does? And if that's the case, I wish I could think of some quippy anecdote, which I can't, because I'm not an anecdote kind of guy. But it's bullshit. So... Well,
if you want a quippy anecdote, never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yeah, it's amazing how... when someone decides they're going to push an agenda, the links that they'll go to, you just pick and choose data, and it doesn't matter if it's real or not, you just say it. People think it and feel it and act accordingly.
Well, obviously, following on from last week's episode, some conversations that I've had, like, for a start, obviously, very controversial topic, and I'm unsurprised that we only got a couple of comments on YouTube, because, again, people don't want to out themselves with their perspective on these things, and that's perfectly fine. I completely understand that. We had probably double the viewership on average that we normally get, so we normally film these things on a Saturday and drop them on Monday. It's Thursday, so the last video's only been up for 3 days now. It's had about twice the average views as what we normally get, and also twice the downloads on the audio platforms as well. So, look, clearly it's a subject that people are interested in.
I also had a lot of people actually reach out to me to talk to me about it.
Yeah, I had some as well. And what I just find really interesting about... Look, this is just any number of subjects, but... I think we maybe have mentioned something similar last week, but in this day and age where you've got all the information at your fingertips, if you actually go looking for it, I feel like a lot of us are wanting to believe whatever we're fed more than ever. I feel like there is less of a, question everything, do your own research mentality than there used to be.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
I think that is fair to say. I think it's not nefarious. I think it's lazy. It's just, no, I've been told this, I've heard this, so that's what it is.
Yeah.
But, yeah, with all the world's information available, we're choosing not to use it.
Yeah, but just also, I had a conversation with someone during the week, and it's not surprised me, but it's somewhat alarming because we were talking about, I'm not going to go too specific with it, but we were talking about a particular subject, and I showed them a video which supported one particular side of the subject. Now, the person delivering the information was fairly aggressive. So the way that it was sold didn't come across as great.
Yeah.
But the information was the information,
sure.
regardless. Now, the person I was speaking to was like, just hearing him speak, I just don't want to hear the rest of it. And I'm like, okay, but take the way he's delivering the information out, and just, what did you think about the information itself? And she was like, well, it doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm like, okay. That's a bit concerning, because that just makes me go, all these politicians that dress up in the suit and tie and give you the polished speech that you want to hear, I'm more willing to receive that information than I am from someone who maybe is just a bit exacerbated because of how, ridiculous maybe the mainstream agenda is on it, and they've just been having this speech over and over again, and they're delivering the information poorly.
See, I think that is really important, and that's why we structured last week's podcast the way that we did, is that we only spoke about facts and timelines, because it's very easy to become emotionally invested in it, and as soon as you do, you've just discounted everything you've said. Yeah,
well, the Donald Trump element to last week's story is the perfect example. Everything that he said at the beginning of the pandemic, China virus, Wuhan flu, China's going to pay, the way he said it wasn't received well by anyone, but 12 months later, and once he's out of office and off social media and it's safe to talk about, he was right about all this stuff. So, yeah, I
challenge the people that think like that. And look, I think you probably could have handled it better, because you should find someone that delivers the information in a more concise way. Because it's big on, it's massive in that crypto community, right? These pump and dump, like these YouTube videos that just try and drag you in with these outlandish claims. I don't listen to any of them, because I don't receive that information. Well, the stuff could be right, for sure, but I don't want you throwing it in my face.
Yeah.
So I'm that person too. And if I don't have to sift through that information, I won't. But I think it's on, if you're just saying no, it's on you to support your beliefs, not to poo-poo someone else's.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you disagree with someone, you need to be able to show...
To back it up.
Yeah, to back it up, and to show why you actually disagree with it. And I actually saw an interesting example of this on YouTube this week, and I think I sent you the video clip. So there's a guy called Stephen Crowder. He has a show called Louder with Crowder. It's a very conservative YouTube show, and he's had a bit of a feud recently with this other guy called H3H3, who I don't know anything about.
He's good. Yeah.
So
Ethan Klein.
Right, so I don't really know anything about him. But what I found really interesting was they've had a bit of a feud, and then Crowder put out the invitation to Ethan to come on his show and have a debate over the particular subject matter that they were feuding over. And in the direct messages and stuff, it was like, no bullshit, no tricks, just come on and have this conversation. And then when he actually came on the show, Ethan, as soon as it started off, pulls a Swiftie and switches the feed to some other bloke who's been trying to have a debate with Crowder for ages. And the whole thing just turned into something pretty farcical. And did you watch this at all?
Yeah, I watched it.
Okay. So the thing that I found the most interesting about this is you've obviously got two different camps. You've got Crowder's camp and you've got Ethan's camp, and their fans and subscribers on YouTube. And you just go through the YouTube comments on both of them. And now, I had never heard of this Ethan dude before this, so I've obviously watched some of Crowder's stuff. Don't agree with everything that he says. Some of the stuff I do. So, but I watched some of his stuff just to get that perspective on things, and then I'll watch other things as well. But he released the like unedited video of the whole interaction, and prior to when they actually did the lead-in, they were having quite an amicable conversation, and Ethan was speaking to Crowder about, like, his wife and her pregnancy dramas that she's having, all that sort of stuff. It was really amicable, real nice. And then when they get into it, he pulls this Swiftie. Now, then on my YouTube feed, I had Ethan's version of events pop up. So I'm like, all right, let's just go on there and have a look at what it is. And his version of the video was him basically rubbishing Crowder right from the beginning and saying he's a racist and a bigot and all these bad things, and then had sort of chopped it up to make him look better, or that he'd won the exchange or whatever it was. And then you go into his comments and it's all of his guys going, oh yeah, like, fuck that Crowder dude. And I just looked at that and I found it so interesting, because I'm like, people just see what they want to see. And it doesn't matter what the information is a lot of the time. They just care about who it comes from and what camp they're in. And whatever the person who is in their camp says to them, they just take it as gospel. And you can't live your lives like that. Because just because
if you got the... So I agree with you. It was a bit of a debacle. It was a great troll on Ethan's part. It's created great content for both of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so from in YouTube world, that's exactly what everyone wants.
Yeah, because you just want views.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether it's the truth or not, you just want views.
Yeah, it's entertainment. It's entertainment. And the H3H3 podcast is it's an entertainment podcast. I have to say, because I was a little bit, I didn't like the bullying that Crowder and
Dave Landau did.
Dave Landau, who I'm a massive fan of Dave Landau, he's hilarious. How they railroaded that guy. I kind of get it because of the viewership thing. I kind of get that, because it looks like a little barnacle's trying to suck views off of the big guy. So I kind of get that. But did you hear Ethan's line when he first flicked the switch about Spartans?
No.
Did you know that Spartans were boy lovers? Right, he just said it.
Oh yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
I cracked up. It's just it was a big troll.
Well,
you've got to remove the subject matter out of it. It had nothing to do with it. It was never going to be about that. Knowing both parties, because I view both of them, Ethan's just trolled the situation, and now both of them have got stacks of content out of it.
Yeah, and look, that's fair enough. If that's what they wanted. The way I took it, and again, this is probably because I didn't know Ethan beforehand, I took it as pretty soft when the whole point of it was to debate a subject. And as someone who I will often debate subjects with people, like you guys hear it on, when we disagree about something, we'll debate it, because that's what we do. And I could understand where the bullying came from Crowder's crew, because obviously they brought this guy and it was a troll.
It was a troll.
So if you troll someone, you can't expect them to treat you with respect in return.
No, that's fine. But they both won.
Yeah.
Because they both got stacks of content out of it. We're talking about it.
For sure. But again, regardless of that particular matter, I found that so interesting as just a statement on where we're at as a society. Because we just want to hear whatever our leader is in our particular camp, literally whatever they say, as long as they package it up nicely for us, we're happy to just accept that information as gospel. And you do need to question just about everything that's said on the media these days, because I think someone in our Facebook comments said it perfectly. As soon as there's money involved, you got to take it with a grain of salt. Because if someone's got some sort of financial interest behind whatever it is that they're saying, you can never be 100% sure that it's the truth unless you actually go and do the research yourself. So don't just put your idols up there and Fauci, perfect example. Fauci was the golden boy and the idol of America during the whole COVID thing. He was up in lights. I haven't heard his name much I haven't seen him on TV much lately. He was on TV every single day, just like Dr. Bill was. Because we put these guys up in lights and we believed everything it was they said until it was proven was false. And then now we're like, oh shit, maybe we could have done something differently over the last 12 months.
Again, I don't think it's a state of our nation now. I don't think this has ever changed. I think you'll find throughout all of history, people tend to be tribal in their thinking, in their doctrine, and I don't think that's ever going to change. So the only advice that I would give to someone is do not buy into it. Look after yourself, look after your family, look after your mental health, look after your physical health, and you will be one step ahead of anyone that's engaged in that space.
Where I think that it has changed is general trust of government.
No,
you don't think that's changed?
No way.
I think people are more trusting of government now than they've ever been.
No, I don't think that's changed. There's nothing that says to, or give me an example of why we're more trusting now than.
If you would have gone 20 years ago and had governments of the world trying mass vaccination on an experimental vaccine for a virus with a 1% death rate, I don't think people would have copped it. 20 years ago.
Absolutely. I can give you the example.
What?
The War on Terror. That was 20 years ago, and we all like Cronulla riots, the racial segregation that was built from that war.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no.
We fell for it.
Yeah, no.
Probably even bigger, seeing as though Australia's got 3% of their population vaccinated. There was more people at the Cronulla riots, I reckon, than have been vaccinated in Australia. Right, so
I reckon you're probably right there.
And that's why I don't necessarily think.
You know what? Fair enough. You've changed my mind.
But
so
I'll also
people
say,
out there, you're allowed to change your mind too.
I don't know. Did I talk to you about this morning? Koshi was grilling some New South Wales Premier about.
Yeah.
And Koshi was pushing the
vaccination.
Yeah, and the government was just like, he was just like, yeah, testing, and they're like, no, vaccine. So there's something else going on there. I believe the Australian government kind of gets that we don't really need to do it. There's other things that we can do. There's other measures we can pull. There's other levers we can pull to look after ourselves in regards to COVID. Mm-hmm. And the reason why we only have 3% is because they're telling the people that want to get the vaccine that they can go get the vaccine.
Yeah.
And they're giving it out for the people that don't want the vaccine to not get the vaccine.
Yeah.
And I think the large tribe has spoken where only 3% have.
Mm. It's interesting too, isn't it? How so only 3% of the population's vaccinated for COVID, and yet the angle on the mainstream media is all about supply issues.
But I think that's part of it. I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
Go get it. It's not there. Go get it. It's not there. So just like you said before, people just hear what they want to hear. So the people who hear go get it are going to go get it. Yep. The people that hear no supply, they're not going to get it.
Yeah.
And they're playing both sides of this. To me, it's
but
as clear
I
as
haven't actually heard anyone when that supply issue stuff. It all comes from obviously the media. The news presenter will say there's a supply issue, and then they'll get an expert on that'll talk about the supply issue.
Or don't get an expert, get a commentator.
Yeah.
Which is, we're just as qualified to do that.
Oh, yeah. And we're open for it too.
Yeah,
we're not making any money out of this podcast yet, so I'll say whatever if you want.
Give me some of that cash cow money.
Yeah. And then I'll come on the podcast and I'll tell everyone not to believe what I said.
I'll dress as the cash cow.
But yeah, they never seem to have interviews with people who are like, oh yeah, I called the doctors to get vaccinated and they said they didn't have any vaccines, so I didn't go.
Yeah, but why would they? Do you know what I mean? Practically, to me, the game plan is as clear as day. Mm-hmm. Play both sides, keep everyone happy. Let's move on. That's what I see. Here's
an interesting angle to it too, which is the state of emergency stuff. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if we discussed this on the pod before, but in Australia at the moment, in pretty much all states, I haven't checked Northern Territory or Western Australia because it's not really been front of mind. I've sort of looked at Queensland and particularly Victoria because of obviously the issues they've had down there. Now, we've been in what they call state of emergency, which means that our health bureaucrats basically make all the decisions. And that's obviously because of the COVID outbreaks, etc. So one theme that's been really interesting, especially this year, so 2021, is how those states of emergency keep getting extended. So in Queensland, for example, the last expiry date for our state of emergency was at the end of March, 29th of March. And then lo and behold, we had some cases at the end of March, and the last week we had a lockdown, and then they extended the state of emergency until the 29th of June. Mm-hmm. So that's a deadline that we're coming up to fairly shortly. In Victoria, the state of emergency was supposed to expire on the 4th of June. Mm-hmm. And then lo and behold, literally exactly a week before the 4th of June, they went into lockdown. And the first lockdown was only supposed to go for 7 days.
Yep.
Then they extended it for another week after that. Well, that 7 days actually ran all the way up until the 4th of June. And then subsequently, they've extended the state of emergency in Victoria until the 1st of July. So what I find interesting about that particular angle is I am wondering if, and this might sound conspiracy theory because this is just me trying to figure some stuff out in my own head, so take it with a grain of salt again, but I'm wondering if the reason why they have to keep extending the state of emergency is because the statistics they're getting in on the adverse events and adverse reactions to the vaccines would typically be enough that if you weren't in a state of emergency, they would have to cancel the vaccination program completely.
Yeah, I can see that angle, but I think a less less evil thing would just be, look, we don't know what it's going to do, so we want to have the powers in pocket. That's how I think. If I was sitting in power and go, okay, look, we're really teetering on the edge of cancelling the emergency stuff, but if something happens, we need to be able to have those controls in place.
Yeah,
that's what I think the conversations would be.
But the thing is, you could switch the state of emergency back on whenever you needed to. So that we had to switch it on.
Maybe you can't.
Well, we had to switch it on at the beginning anyway.
Yeah,
so obviously there was a threshold of emergency we had to switch it on.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm thinking in this particular way is that, like, when something's in place and you can keep extending it, obviously that's so you have continuity throughout the whole time. But if let's say that, because, you know, obviously conveniently now we've got these cases in Queensland towards the end of the month, which they actually said on the record they think is spread by a fully vaccinated person to hotel quarantine guests.
Yeah.
So there's another element to the story. I do, because I'm again, I don't know what the threshold is, and I would have to do some research on this as well, but I'm sure that there is a threshold of safety that if you have a drug of any kind on the market and you get the amount of adverse reactions and deaths following taking that drug, I'm pretty sure it gets pulled from usage. But because there's a state of emergency, because again, I don't think it's nefarious. I think it's that whole mentality of the benefits of the vaccines outweigh the risks of taking the vaccines. So maybe in their heads are like, well, we keep the state of emergency going. We get as many people vaccinated as we can. Maybe we get ourselves to herd immunity, if that's what they're targeting. And then you pull the state of emergency off and then the vaccines go away.
Well, didn't they already cancel? They've just announced the end of AstraZeneca.
I didn't hear that. No.
Have you got your phone on you?
Yeah.
Do you just want to check that? Because I'm sure I heard it. And then I want to riff a little bit on, did you see on the news last night about Clive Palmer's postal marketing campaign that he's put these big red things talking about how many people have died from the vaccine?
Oh,
it was on the project. They were slamming him on the project.
I received that in the post.
So they're slamming him. Like the law needs to do something about it. And then someone tweeted, and it was really interesting. Well, the information's lifted off the
TGA website.
The TGA website.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen it yet, like I've still
is that
got
misinformation if it's off the TGA website?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And just to give you an idea too, there's one of the links that I put on last week's video was about the total amount of active COVID cases in Australian hospitals, because I feel like it's really interesting when you hear in the media the amount of cases, but we don't hear how sick those people are. We haven't heard obviously any deaths. There's been no new deaths, as we already discussed, but we don't know about the hospitalizations either, because you can have COVID but be asymptomatic and not be sick, right? So I always find it interesting when I hear the stories of all the cases and stuff to actually revert to the, again, TGA website, which shows you how many active COVID cases are in hospital. So at the moment, I've just refreshed it. So in total, there's 45 in hospitals in Australia. There's 0 people in the ICU, so they're only just hospitals. In New South Wales, where have they just gone into lockdown now? I think we've closed the border.
No, they're not locking down. They're locked within the state.
Yeah, okay. So they've had mask mandates and all that sort of stuff. So in New South Wales, there's currently only 2 people in hospital.
Okay.
Now in Queensland, there's 35 people in hospital,
right,
which I find interesting that, and I'm assuming that these people must be hotel quarantine guests potentially, because we haven't really been hearing about wide scale spreading in the community, have we? I don't think so. I don't remember hearing it on the news. So, and Victoria is back down to 4 people. So obviously Victoria had 60 odd or 80 odd cases or whatever it got to, no deaths, and now you've only got 4 people in hospital.
Yeah.
So I find that stuff really, really interesting, because
can you look up the?
Yeah, let me look that up.
I think you'd said to me off air before that they just the media's pushing whatever the big number is. So the big number being is moving from cases now to contacts. So they're talking about how many contacts can...
primary close contacts.
Yeah, primary close contacts, because one person now has 30 primary contacts. So it's just a bit of spin. But I thought I saw in the news last night that was like a real short clip, that the AstraZeneca was going to be wrapped up by like the end of September or something, and they weren't going to use it after that.
Yeah, well, The only things that are coming up, and this is on DuckDuckGo, so again, as I said, I've stayed away from searching stuff on Google because they filter out certain results, but nothing's actually coming up
Twitter?
on here.
Try Twitter. Have you got Twitter?
I don't really use Twitter. But the only news stories that are coming up is about people who've had their first AstraZeneca shot have been urged to go and get their second.
Yeah, gotta get rid of that stock, dude.
Well,
stock takes out end of financial year specials.
Yeah.
Get your second dose.
And look, is that part of it? Like, we've obviously invested a lot of money in getting AstraZeneca over here, and it is a large cost to the Australian taxpayer. So are they literally just trying to get through as many doses as they can before it gets pulled off the shelves?
Well, also, as far as I can see, the second dose is not as problematic as the first.
Yeah, see, that's where things get interesting for me, because is AstraZeneca an mRNA? I don't think it is it? It is?
They all are except Johnson.
Okay. So why do you think that the second dose is less problematic?
Because the person that's died from the first, they died from the first dose. If you're going to have an adverse reaction, you're going to have it to the first.
Yeah, see, this is where I think that the science will catch up with these mRNA vaccines, because with the two doses, they're two doses of the same thing. They're not two separate chemicals that they're putting inside your body. And like I said last week, why have we never used mRNA before? Well, it's because we've never been able to actually make it functional and safe in the past. And the reason for that is that, so a lot of people have experienced mild side effects from the first dose, and then have experienced, and again, I don't know if this is from AstraZeneca specifically, but I've definitely heard there's things like Pfizer and Moderna overseas, but people have experienced, they've been saying the second shot really knocks them around and like hits them hard. And what my concern is with mRNA vaccinations is, from the trials in the past, particularly when they trialed some of these things on mink back in the day, they got the same sort of data as what we're receiving from the first dosages, which is your body's giving you the robust antibody response that they want to see. Mm-hmm. So it looks like it's actually doing its job, and it is creating the antibodies. But what happens is when your body is then exposed to it again, which can either be by the second dose or also by actually coming into contact with the disease in the wild, it's not that the actual dose or the disease itself is affecting you, it's your body is having, it's like an autoimmune issue where it's having an overactive immune response to it, and it's actually your own immune system which is attacking your own cells. That's where I get concerned.
Yeah, and isn't that what kind of the similar function of what how actually COVID kills you is your I'm just thinking back to like the first months of the pandy, and they're talking about it's your body's over response to that on your lungs is what kills you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, see, I'm not 100% sure about that either.
I'm not a scientist.
Yeah, but we'd have to look into it. But see, this is my concern with it, because, and again, I was having another conversation during the week, and it was about AstraZeneca, and what I found really interesting about, and again, it could be dead wrong here because I could just be seeing a skewed view of, yeah, okay. So I could just be seeing a skewed view of what is happening through the media, but when you've had all of these negative news stories about the AstraZeneca vaccine, and in particular the TTS, that thrombosis with thrombocytopenia or the blood clotting disorder, instead of making people question the vaccine rollout altogether, it's just made people go, oh, I want the Pfizer jab because the Pfizer jab's the good one.
Yeah.
And that to me is a bit problematic as well. Yeah,
because it's not a smart method of like problem solving.
No, because it's like
saying oh, the hunting knife is dangerous, so I'll take the butterfly knife.
Yeah, well, potentially, but what's problematic about it for me is it's like, well, I don't want the one that's shown up with instant side effects. I want the one that we don't know what the long-term side effects are yet. And obviously we don't know what the long-term side effects of AstraZeneca are either. But I heard someone say an interesting thought experiment on YouTube the other day. And it's if you walked into a room and there's a revolver, so a six bullet revolver just sitting on the chair, and you picked up the revolver, put it to your head, pulled the trigger, and it didn't fire. So just because it didn't hurt you, is it still a good idea to do that?
Yeah. No, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. But it is a really, really, really obviously touchy situation.
Oh, of course.
Because it's just so much.
And this is one of those things that, like, again, I just want to reiterate too. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I've had all the other vaccines that are in regular supply. My son's vaccinated. And this is one of those things where you have to make your own personal choice on what it is that you want to do that you think is the right thing for you and your family. All I would say, as I said last week, is make sure that you're 100% informed on the decision that it is that you're making. Because at the moment, my concerns with mainstream media and also with the government's marketing in regards to the subject is it's only showing you one side of it. Like there's this ad that keeps running on, and I don't know if it's not just on Foxtel, because I watch a lot of sports on Fox, but there's this ad running at the moment, and it's got this this doctor on it. I can't remember what his name is, but and it's from the Australian government, and it's talking about the COVID rollout and getting not COVID rollout, slip of the tongue, the vaccine rollout, and it's like. It's the messaging in it is like, oh, so we're doing these things, and the TGA has done their checks on it, and they've been proven to be safe and effective. Don't forget, we're not safe until we're all safe.
Yeah.
And then he goes into like a cafe, and it's the lamest thing. The barista hands him over 2 coffees, and the barista's like, yours is the 2-shot, and then he's like, like it's the lamest thing I've ever seen. But I remember being in America, right? So
you wouldn't film the adverse reaction to the first sip of that coffee.
Well, it's the second sip that gets you. But I remember being in America years ago. I think it was 2015, 2016. Can't remember off the top of my head. But they've got a lot of pharmaceutical ads on TV.
Oh, yeah.
But with every single pharmaceutical ad, they have to, by law, list all the side effects.
Yeah.
And it's like, may cause... And it goes through the whole...
And
death.
Yeah.
And it goes through the whole list of side effects. And yet we've got Australian government messaging, which is like, safe and effective, we're not safe until we're all safe. So in other words, if you don't go and get it, you're making everyone else in your community unsafe, even though the latest case in Queensland was spread by someone who's fully vaccinated. But they're not going, oh, and by the way, current death toll post-vaccination is 303.
I don't think that's what the government's pushing. In my experience this morning, watching that clip this morning, that is a media pushed thing. And look, the media's going to push both sides because, you know, they've got ads to sell. So
when you say watch the clip, do you mean the ad I'm talking about, or that thing with Koshy?
The Koshy thing?
Yeah, because the ad is literally, it's an Australian government ad.
Sure, yeah, and it... I don't know if we are subject to different advertising.
Probably.
Or if we're both absorbing the advertising in a different way.
Okay. Have you seen that ad?
No.
Okay, there you go. Different advertising.
No. So, I do think they're giving us an out. Because look, if they really wanted to, they could have more than 3% done. Let's be real. If the government wanted to, they could have 3% done.
If the government wanted to,
you shouldn't be able to drive. If the government wanted, if you wouldn't be able to drive down. Like I've seen more blood donation vans than I have. Like surely you could just set up a. If it wanted to be done, it could be done. Which makes me think they don't necessarily want it to be done. But I think the media is pushing it, and way harder.
So why would the media push it and not the government?
It's scared. It's the scariest. It's the scariest thing it's the absolute height of what's the word I'm looking for? It's the height of. I feel like an idiot now.
Look like it too.
Scary.
Yeah, it's
horrific. Like it's the best story to sell if to spread fear.
So to be really cynical about the whole media aspect of this, do you think that they're just trying to squeeze every drip out of the COVID fear angle and get as many people vaccinated as they can? So then they're already setting up their next major scandal, which is vaccination-related issues after COVID moves out of the news cycle.
I don't think it's that malicious, but I think they get on something, they get on it hard because
there's nothing else to talk about.
If they don't talk about that, well, they're not going to be able to sell tissues during the ad breaks, or they're not going to be able to sell the toilet cleaner or health insurance.
Yeah.
we know that that's what their target is. We know that that's why they're in business. And I don't think they're forward thinking about issues. I don't think they're willing to kill people to make a story. I don't think that's at all. But this subject now, it's an easy one to push. It's an easy one to get buying for, and it's an easy one to look good. And they were complicit 10 years ago in got to take down Saddam, went to mass destruction.
That's
got
20
it
years
there.
ago.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah.
They did it then too. So it's that's just how they do it. And it's normal.
You know, it's an interesting subject that has moved its way out of the news cycle, whilst simultaneously something else has come back in, is the whole treatment of women around Parliament House thing. That's completely gone out of the news cycle. And then this week, Barnaby Joyce Stephen Bradbury his way into being deputy PM again.
Yeah, that is wild, man.
So if I loved when the Barnaby Joyce story broke because Batuta Advocate was on fire.
Yeah.
It was 4 to 5 stories a day about
pure gold.
Of pure gold. Of Barnaby like having to save money and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. But it's so interesting how it's like, obviously, the sexual misconduct in Parliament House and the treatment of women was all that we were talking about for probably 3 months at the start of this year. And that's all completely gone out of the news cycle. And then, literally this week, the guy who was unceremoniously dumped because he had an affair with his wife and impregnated a staffer is now our deputy PM. I'm pretty sure, is he acting PM at the moment? Because I think ScoMo's still in lockdown from his trip.
I thought he was just the Nationals
Yeah,
leader.
so he's second in charge in the coalition.
So what happened to, what was the old deputy?
I don't really know. I can't remember if I've got this right, but I think he made some speech about how...
Just another white man.
Well, no, how... I think he pissed off a lot of powerful people because... Remember how we had that mouse plague down south? So he's very much, obviously, for the country and for the farmers and etc. And he made some comment about how the latte drinkers in the eastern suburbs don't have a clue what's going on, and I wish that the mouse plague made its way to their homes and they had like rat poo in their house and the mouse like attacking their children, and it was something along the lines of that.
If you left the children part out, that's gold.
Well,
and it's true.
Oh yeah, but the thing is, like, you're still alienating voters, right? So those latte drinkers in the highly populated areas, they vote too. So they've just gone, okay, now you're pissed off.
He's right. It doesn't make him wrong though.
Oh, it doesn't make him wrong.
And didn't ScoMo make that same comment about something else? He's like, the economic problems won't be fixed by... the line was
it's always something like latte drinkers or whatever. Which I don't mind a good latte too. I feel like I'm a man of the people, but I like a good latte. But I also drink double espressos, and I've had a lot today because I need it.
But where's most of it? On the floor of
it's
my
on
office.
The floor. My heart sank when I spilled that coffee because it was a full cup too.
And it was just, I think it was that PTSD from from childhood.
Yeah, probably.
Just hearing Dad say, "You're not allowed in the lounge room with drinks anymore."
But so going back to this story, so consider that. So when we're talking about how the media controls narratives and controls what we think, but also those polarizing subjects that they know are designed to make us argue with each other, so we avoid talking about what the real issues are. That was one of those polarizing subjects, because I know, like, the Brittany Higgins scenario, that had 2 different camps arguing with each other all the time over it. And it was the biggest deal in the country at the time. Even during vaccine rollout, COVID's still a problem, we're having lockdowns, but even during that time, it was the most important thing on the news cycle, and now it's gone, and Barnaby's acting PM.
Yeah, that is wild.
Barnaby the beetroot head, acting PM. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of feel like, to a level, China and Russia just laughing at the West. Because they're planning... Like, Russia probably not so much, but China definitely. Yeah. They've got a plan. They're executing the plan.
Yeah.
It's faultless. They're progressing fast. You know, in my generation, they've gone from poor to uber rich.
Yeah.
You know, in one generation. what are they going to look like in 2 or 3 generations?
Yeah, and like you said, because they just stick to the plan. It's all long-term thinking with those countries, whereas we're all 3 to 4 year election cycle thinking.
It's that chess versus
go. Yeah.
It's they must be. When they see the G7, all having a chat, touching elbows and stuff, and and they must be just going.
It's so cringe, isn't it? All that just and if people want to talk about white supremacists, if you looked at the G7 summit, they're the white supremacists. They are the supreme white people who are running the Western world. There is not a different skin color in the whole G7 summit.
Is Germany in the G7? Was there any women in there? Or was it all men?
I thought it was all blokes.
So is Germany not in the G7? Because Angela Merkel's still in power, isn't she?
Don't know. Maybe
I think she is. I think she is. Yeah, but I don't see her in any of the photos. No. But yeah, she white. It's white. It is a whitewash.
Yeah, that's right. So it's not the tiki torture guys that you have to worry about. It's the actual white, the supreme whites.
The supreme whites.
Yeah. Is that not what white supremacy is?
They need a bit of flavour in the G7, I think. They need a little bit of culture.
Yeah, but like you said, even though you've... What I find really interesting, and getting away from the whole G7 thing, is in that movie, The Social Dilemma, about social media, they mentioned something in that movie about how divided all the countries are becoming as far as the people go that have widespread use of social media. And that's possibly a key to China. I remember hearing stories early on about how China banned social media, and they're like, it's obviously against people's rights and they shouldn't do that. But then there's other countries, like third world countries, where if you buy a mobile phone, if you don't have Facebook, they literally download Facebook onto your phone and set up a profile for you. And then those countries have started to become more destabilized than they've ever been, because you've got these major corporations which are controlling the flow of information that people are literally consuming every single day. Mm-hmm. It's just super interesting. And is that part of the China, Russia long-term thinking aspect? I'm sure Russians are on social media. I don't think...
Yeah, I think Russians are, but China's not, because I've been to, when I landed in Shanghai airport and tried to log in, and it's like,
nope.
Not today. No Google. No.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But yeah, I do think we are flailing as a Western culture is flailing because we're worrying about things that are relatively minute, whilst the forward thinkers are thinking about big picture.
Yeah,
stuff.
And
we're not working towards a big picture.
No, and I think traditional values, whatever your idea of traditional values are, have seemed to have taken a back step to a lot of these inflammatory subjects. Like traditional values such as, treat people as you wish to be treated. Yeah. That's completely gone out the window now. Because, like you said, that whole, if we go back to the Ethan and Crowder thing, that could have been an opportunity for two people with differing views to come together and have a conversation. But for the sake of content, because it's what we crave on the internet, we've done a troll job and completely fucked it up. And now both sides are celebrating a victory. Yeah. Isn't that...
No, but I like that. I think that's great.
Yeah, and that...
Did you see Alex Jones call out the Paul brothers on Flagrant 2?
I didn't see... I haven't watched that one yet.
Oh, it is so good.
Yeah.
He is the funniest entertainer that is out there. But he basically called out... He said he'll fight Logan and
Jake Paul
at the same time. And if they don't take him up on the fight, then they're one and the same as Jeffrey Epstein.
That's a good call out. Yeah. Actually, the Paul brothers got called out by Anderson Silva. This is a story that you may have missed. So, Anderson Silva, UFC, great. So, he for a long... but he's healed up. He, for a long, long time, has wanted to go into boxing, but the UFC's contracts are so strict that if you're under contract, you got to see him out. You literally can't do anything else. And Anderson Silva's 46. And... he, I think it was on the weekend, he actually had his first professional boxing match, I think, since the late 90s, like 98, 99, something like that. and he's 46 years old, and he had a boxing match against Julio Cesar Chavez's son,
right,
who is a former boxing world champion.
Yeah.
And touched him up.
Yeah.
Anderson Silva.
Long arms.
Touched him up.
Long hooks, yeah.
Yeah. So against a younger guy who's a former boxing world champion, and you know, juniors never hit the same heights as senior. Senior's like a deity in boxing, but even so, extremely capable boxer. And Anderson Silva just touched him up. Won by split decision, but that's because boxing's corrupt, and one of the judges was trying to give it to Chavez, but absolutely touched him up, and then called out the Paul brothers. I think he called out Logan specifically because they're about the same size.
He doesn't speak good English, does he?
No.
Then that's why that fight won't happen.
Well, no, it won't happen because Logan Paul will get destroyed by Anderson Silva. So Logan Paul's already... apparently, I'm sure it was Logan he called out. Might have been Jake, but whichever Paul brother it was, he's already declined the fight. I would assume maybe you're right, not enough eyes, but also it ruins all the other fights that they're trying to go for. When a 46-year-old former mixed martial arts champion, who I think lost like his last 4 or 5 fights in MMA before he retired from MMA.
See, the only fight I want to see is Jake Paul versus Barney Joyce.
For the douchebag belt of the world.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'd like to see.
Barnaby can probably throw down. Like, when you think about it, if you're someone who has fallen into disgrace in the public eye but remained in it, you must know how to handle yourself in a dust
a handful of sand in your eyes and on a desert.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe. That might be something worth thinking about. Call them out.
I think that's it.
All right, I think that's it for the day. Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you next RDO.